Well, Skinwalker Ranch.
Skinwalker Ranch.
Skinwalker Ranch.
Skinwalker Ranch.
Skinwalker Ranch.
Skinwalker Ranch is the most scientifically studied paranormal hotspot on the planet. It's been investigated by billionaires, scientists, the Department of Defense, and multiple government UFO programs. And for decades, people who have gone there have reported seeing things that seem to defy explanation. But despite all of the money, all of the scientists, and all of the investigations, we still don't know what's actually happening there. And that's what makes Skinwalker Ranch so fascinating, because this isn't just a story about UFOs. It's a story that involves Native American legends, strange cattle deaths, secret government programs, potential wormholes, unexplained medical events, and eventually, one of the History Channel's biggest television shows. Skinwalker Ranch is a 512-acre cattle ranch located in northeastern Utah, in an area known as the Uintah Basin. It originally was home to a Native American tribe known as the Utes. The Utes have lived throughout this region for centuries, but so have the Navajo. And throughout history, they have had many conflicts, one of which led to the name of the ranch we know today. One of the most famous legends surrounding the ranch says that centuries ago, the Ute and Navajo fought over this region. According to the legend, after the Navajo were defeated, the land was cursed with skinwalkers, evil entities with the ability to change into any human or animal. In Navajo culture, these are important and deeply sensitive beliefs. Many Native Americans even today won't speak about any experience they have involving them or look in the direction of the ranch. The surrounding reservations have even been seen leaving dead animals on the fence, believing that this would keep the evil entity on the ranch. By the early 1900s, local newspapers were already reporting strange occurrences around the Uintah Basin. Witnesses heard and felt unexplained rumbling and explosions beneath the ground. They saw unexplained lights in the sky, and eventually, cattle mutilations. But the biggest problem is that the Myers, the ranchers who lived there for 60 years, said they never saw anything abnormal. But that changed in 1994. That was the year the Shermans bought the ranch. Before anything strange happened, they noticed that even though the Myers said nothing weird ever happened to them, they had deadbolts on both sides of the doors in the house and on all of the cabinets. And there were iron stakes and heavy chains outside the home, presumably for large guard dogs. So the property was strangely fortified, for it being said nothing weird ever happened there. Within a few days, they would already experience their first event. They saw a massive wolf approach them as if it was someone's domesticated pet and smelled like a wet dog. After being pet by the Shermans, it went over to the fence line and tried to rip a calf through the fence. Terry Sherman shot the dog with a pistol, hunting rifle, and shotgun before it finally ended up retreating back into the field. But it wasn't bleeding and was unfazed. He also went to go track it and noticed that the tracks just suddenly vanished. Over the next several years, they reported seeing enormous 9-foot-tall creatures, physical craft flying over the property, and orbs of light moving around the ranch and in the woods. They heard noises of heavy machinery underground, disembodied voices seemingly coming from above, and the strangest of them all, holes opening in the sky, with objects flying in and out. Then, there were the cattle. Reports of cattle mutilations in the region date back decades, with earliest known incidents occurring around 1930, and by the 1970s, it had become a recurring phenomenon. The mutilations would have different details, such as the eyes or ears missing, udders or sex organs being removed, but one detail was always the same. All blood had been drained from the body, and not a single drop was ever discovered. The Shermans' final straw was when they sent their 3 dogs to chase an orb into the woods, They heard a yelp from the dogs and then silence. The following day they went to go search and they saw that the ground was burnt and the only thing left behind was burnt flesh and hair. The dogs had seemingly been incinerated. Local newspapers wrote stories about the ranch, which caught the eye of aerospace billionaire Robert Bigelow, who quickly purchased the ranch for $200,000 in 1996. And then the story quickly became, why would a billionaire buy a remote paranormal ranch? Well, just 1 year prior, Bigelow had funded the National Institute for Discovered Science. NIDS' purpose was to investigate anomalous activity from a professional scientific standpoint, and mainly focus on consciousness and UFOs. NIDS began investigating the ranch, bringing in scientists and researchers, but because the investigation was done privately and through Bigelow's company, no details of anything discovered have ever come out. Bigelow himself remained cautious about drawing conclusions, stating, "We know so little in terms of what the overall scope of these phenomena is all about that it's just embarrassing to try to make conclusions at this point." And Bigelow's interest in UFOs went far beyond Skinwalker Ranch. His aerospace company, Bigelow Aerospace, was reportedly involved in an attempt to acquire an off-world craft in the possession of Lockheed Martin. According to the account, the proposed transfer was blocked in 2009 before Bigelow Aerospace could take possession of it.
There was a transfer between Lockheed Martin, Bigelow Aerospace, and the CIA allegedly blocked this. Can you describe that?
What I can say is that it was blocked. Why it was blocked, I can only surmise.
Activity at the ranch reportedly died down, and in 2016, the ranch was sold to another billionaire, Brandon Fugal. Fugal is a Utah native, Mormon, and real estate mogul, but he has an almost secretive past that most people don't know about. Skinwalker Ranch wasn't some random venture of his. He had already developed a strong interest in science, frontier physics, and unexplained phenomena. He purchased the ranch for a rumored $4 to $5 million, and his entire purpose was to prove it as nothing but folklore.
I didn't think there was any validity to the claims, and I actually intended to donate it to the Boy Scouts of America.
Before purchasing the property, he had already worked with both Robert Bigelow and physicist Hal Puthoff on research involving gravitational physics. He also funded a private lab at the Provo Airport, studying gravitational physics theories. He's very open with all of the evidence they have uncovered at the ranch through the Docuseries, and during his appearance on Jesse Michaels' podcast, he mentioned that there is 24/7 surveillance at the ranch that anyone can access.
Jesse, I demonstrated 24/7.
Yeah.
You can get on our insider site and
Hit
you
the
can
live
pull up
feed.
the live feed of the cameras.
But the website shows you have to actually pay to access it. He is also acquainted with Jacques Vallée, one of the most prominent researchers in the UFO field. Fugal has described Vallée as someone whose ideas he greatly respects, and Vallée has visited the ranch and is kept up to date with the outcomes of the investigations. Brandon conducted private investigations on the ranch for years, and then he was approached by the History Channel. They wanted to film the investigations and turn it all into a docuseries. Fugal was initially hesitant and eventually agreed with 3 conditions. He wanted to choose the people who would be involved with the investigation. He wanted to remain anonymous, and he wanted it to be 100% factual, no dramatization. The History Channel eventually convinced Fugal to make his identity public, arguing that people would be more likely to believe what was happening at the ranch if they knew who was actually behind the investigation. And then, they convinced him to bring on Travis Taylor, an astrophysicist from the University of Alabama in Huntsville, with decades of experience working with the Department of Defense and NASA. This led to the creation of The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, a show on the History Channel currently with 7 seasons and over 100 episodes. The team began conducting controlled experiments designed to provoke or reproduce the phenomena reported at the ranch, while simultaneously monitoring the property with cameras, sensors, radar, radiation detectors, and drones. and they've documented some truly bizarre things. The team has reported GPS malfunctions, electromagnetic anomalies, unexplained interference with electronics, and batteries that appear to drain almost instantaneously. They've also recorded multiple UAP sightings, including what appeared to be conventional solid objects reflecting sunlight, as well as luminous orbs that seemed to move around, and in one case, into and out of the Mesa. But it isn't limited to just what is in the sky. They've experienced health events, such as Thomas Winterton being sent to the ER for a head injury where his scalp separated from his skull, and the doctors weren't able to uncover any cause. Many UFO researchers, such as George Knapp, have pointed out how the symptoms he experienced seem to align with Havana syndrome from a directed energy weapon. Travis Taylor also experienced unexplained radiation poisoning. Another team member, Tom Lewis, had a cardiac event which was explained as an electric anomaly with no known cause. Then there is the Mesa, one of the main focal points of their investigation. Using ground-penetrating radar and other surveying techniques, they identified what has been interpreted as a large metallic anomaly, potentially dome-shaped, beneath the Mesa. Once they drilled into it, it became even more confusing. The drill encountered extremely hard impenetrable material, and metallic fragments were recovered and sent for analysis at the University of Utah. The researchers described the material as layered, fused, and indicative of a potentially engineered material. It was made of elements including iron, aluminum, silicon, selenium, europium, and tellurium. Selenium is used in electronics, semiconductors, and has aerospace applications. Europium has also been mentioned by David Grush to be in some of the recovered UFOs the government has possession of.
It's super weird. It's like heavy element, europium, californium stuff.
The team has reported cattle deaths occurring beneath or near apparent UAPs, objects flying under their helicopters, and what appear to be solid metallic craft reflecting sunlight. But the strangest phenomenon associated with Skinwalker Ranch is what's known as the hitchhiker effect. People who visit the property have reported experiencing strange phenomena after leaving, seeing shadows or orbs inside their homes, experiencing unexplained electrical disturbances, or poltergeist activity. Everything reported at the ranch, now in their own home. And this isn't limited to one or two people. This has occurred with most researchers, including Bigelow, Fugal, Travis Taylor, George Knapp, Post Malone when his team visited the ranch, and Jesse Michaels, with many people reporting it doesn't end.
Everybody took things home. We all, we did, but we didn't know that, it was like going to be kind of permanent. We didn't know that, that it's going to stay with you for for years and years or the rest of your life, who knows.
For nearly 30 years, Skinwalker Ranch has been the subject of investigations from private researchers, scientists, billionaires, and the United States government. In 2005, George Knapp co-authored Hunt for the Skinwalker, documenting the strange events reported by the Sherman family and the years of research conducted by NIDS. The book discusses even more stories of UFO sightings, cattle mutilations, strange creatures, unexplained injuries, and phenomena that seemed to defy conventional explanations. But it also introduced a much bigger question. Why are government officials and agencies involved? Because after reading Hunt for the Skinwalker, one person in the Defense Intelligence Agency became so interested in the ranch that he decided to investigate it himself. His name was James Lukatsky, and what happened next would eventually lead to a $22 million Pentagon program, connections to some of the most influential names in UFO research and whistleblowers, and begins to paint a much larger picture than just a paranormal ranch. So make sure to watch part 2, where we'll look at the hidden history behind Skinwalker Ranch, the books that brought it to the public, the Pentagon programs that investigated it, and the unusual but thorough connection to the government, and if it's all just a controlled narrative.